from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 2017. A very interesting year, full of all sorts of things. We ran the gamut on emotions that year, but that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. Tonight we are talking about genealogy and DNA, how your genes unlock your family's hidden past. And we're actually going to be talking about the DNA testing 101 and what your genes can tell you. So buckle up. You're ready to buckle up and do this? Then let's do this. Hang on, where's my notes? I've got them in front of me. We're good. Let's see, hang on. Yes, here we go. So our question for you tonight is, have you ever taken a DNA test? If so, what was the most surprising thing you discovered about your ancestry? If not, what's one family mystery you'd like to solve with DNA? So excuse me. So leave your comments, leave your answers about that in the comments below, and let's have a look at DNA. And if you've ever wondered what a DNA test can actually tell you, how to choose the right one, or if those ethnicity estimates are really accurate, this episode is for you. It's our 101. So let's break it down and help you make the most of the DNA journey. So what can DNA tests tell you? Well, it depends on the type you take. Let's start with the basics. You've got the ethnicity estimates. Most people take a DNA test for the ethnicity breakdown. These results compare your DNA reference populations, showing where your ancestors likely lived. The misconception is that ethnicity estimates can change over time as more data is added to the company's database. So yes, they can. I have seen my DNA results change. At one point, I was 25% Scottish. Now I'm like 14% Scottish. But the more stuff they get in there, the more they can do the thing. Ancestral migration patterns. Some tests will show how your ancestors moved across regions over time. And we're talking thousands of years over time, like where you originally started from to where it got spread out. And this is particularly helpful for those curious about deep ancestral roots. So the more generations you want to go back, that's going to help you with the migration patterns as well. Finding living relatives. DNA matches connects you with relatives who have also tested. Now, based on which test they did as to where you will find them, I've got matching up with, I've got DNA matches in Ancestry.com, 23andMe, and Family Tree DNA. Why? Because I took all three tests. Why? Because I wanted to see how different they were. And we'll get into those in just a little minute about what the difference is between the three tests, because some of them do have some very big differences, but they all have the ethnicity, and their ethnicity results, when you look at them, are within just a couple of percentage points. So they're pretty much accurate across the board when it comes to the ethnicity of it. And remember, it will help you find living relatives. It will show that you are blood related, but it won't show you how. Genealogy comes in to show you how you are related. DNA will show that you are blood related. Some people discover long lost cousins or even close family members they never knew existed. We've had people who have found half siblings, have found full siblings, have found parents. They were adopted. They found their birth parents through the DNA testing. Not for the fact that they've gone to all of those organizations that help adopted children find their missing parent, their birth parents. They've actually found each other through DNA matching, there are so many cool stories out there. Excuse me. And on things like Facebook, they've got some groups that are dedicated to DNA matches and all that sort of stuff. And I'm in there constantly, and there's all these beautiful stories that come out of it. Like this girl found out that her father wasn't actually her birth father, it was her stepfather. And she found people from her birth father's family through DNA matching, but then she wasn't sure how to approach them. And that's a very, you've got to be able to read the situation. You've got to know what your family dynamics are. Will it be acceptable or not be accepted? And then it's just the way that you contact them and the wording that you use to strike up a conversation. Some people will embrace. Some people are like, no, stay away. So Yeah, it comes up with all sorts of things. It can solve family mysteries. DNA testing can help confirm or disprove family stories about Native American ancestry, Viking heritage, even royal bloodlines. And I can claim Viking heritage, kind of, sort of, because I have Danish, Swedish, and at one point I did have Norwegian in me as well. But I also have I have Scottish in me too, which was settled by the Vikings. So you never know. And supposedly on my dad's side of the family, if you go back far enough, we descend from Vikings. And I haven't found that connection yet, except through the DNA. With the Danish blood, the Swedish blood, possibly Norwegian in there. It was showing on one DNA report. Now it's not showing at all after they upgraded the system and everything else. When they did another upgrade, the Norwegian disappeared. So, but I do still have a strong tie to Scotland, and Scotland was settled by Vikings. So you never know where the connection's going to come in. But it's on my dad's side of the family. We have more Scottish blood on my mum's side of the family than we do on my dad's side. So finding out those bloodlines and that, and it's also a great tool for adoptees searching for biological relatives, and vice versa for biological relatives to find children that they've given up for adoption as well. Excuse me. And what's going on with the throat tonight? Let's see. So now we're going to look at the DNA testing and what is the best one to do what based on what it is that you want to find. Not all DNA tests are created equal. So let's have a look. First of all, you've got the testing type is your autosomal DNA. This provides you with ethnicity estimates and matches relatives up to 5 to 7 generations back. And it's best for general ancestry research and finding cousins. And 23andMe does it, MyHeritage does it, Family Tree DNA, and Living DNA. Oh yeah, they've got all the ones I've done in there. I just had to double check. If you want to do your Y-DNA, the Y-DNA traces the paternal lineage, direct male line. The Y-DNA is passed from father to son, father to son, father to son. And there is very little, if any, change in that DNA strand over a long period of time. It's for researching surnames and deep paternal roots, deep paternal history. So it's tracing the male line back to Adam, for that haplogroup. All of your, hang on, is it a haplogroup? Yeah, that's the right term. It will trace back that line to the origin through the DNA strands and all of that. This is why when you're doing DNA testing, if you have say the father has passed and you've only got sisters, you go to the nearest male relative to your father. So it could be his brother, even a nephew, a nephew of your father, or your father's brother. Father's brother would be perfect. If your grandfather is still alive, even better. So you want to get as close to your dad's DNA as possible. You also want to get as many people in the family to test, because the more you have testing, the better the picture for everybody, because you don't get the same strands of DNA from each parent. This is why it'll come up on some reports that you have these blood relations over here, but your sibling could be related to these blood relations over here and may have some of these ones over here in common, but they might have some in common. They may not. They may be completely different. But when you do the DNA matching to each other, you've still got that connection. It's just that you've got blood relations to different cousins, simply because you get different different strands from each parent. You don't get the exact same pair unless you're an identical twin. And then you've got the mitochondrial DNA testing, which is written as small m, small t, and then DNA, and that's done by family. Y-DNA is done by Family Tree DNA as well, and so is the mitochondrial one is done by Family Tree DNA. This traces the maternal lineage. It's a direct female line. The X chromosome that the women have is actually passed from mother to children. Mother to children. Women will only ever have 2 X chromosomes. There are very, very, very rare cases where that doesn't apply. But for 99.9%, women will have 2 X chromosomes. The males get 1 X and 1 Y. They are the decision makers on whether that child's going to be a boy or a girl. So Guys, don't blame your wives. You're the one that makes the decision. For most people, an autosomal DNA test is the best place to start since it covers both sides of the family. But if you're looking to go deeper into either your father or your mother's line, then you want to have your Y DNA or your mitochondrial DNA. If you are a female, you will not have the Y DNA. So you need to get a close male relative to do a DNA testing to be able to trace his lineage, the paternal line back. How do you choose the right DNA test for your goals? And this is a great question. Which one is right for you? We mentioned what, 5, I think it was? Yeah. So Ancestry, 23andMe, MyHeritage, Family DNA, Family Tree DNA, and Living DNA. MyHeritage and Living DNA, I have not done. I have taken my raw data from Family Tree DNA and uploaded it into MyHeritage, and also found cousins that way as well. Because you can take your raw data and upload it into other programs. So how do you choose the one that's right for you? You want to find your relatives and build your family tree. What's a tree? The question is, I want to find my family relatives and build my family tree. The best is an autosomal DNA. This test will connect you with genetic relatives on both sides of your family. If you want to trace your father's direct male lineage, best test is the Y DNA, which is done through Family Tree DNA. And since Y DNA is only passed from father to son, this test is great for surname studies. So if you're doing a one-name study, and the one-name study is taking that one surname and building the tree based on people with that surname. When the daughter is married into that surname, is born into that surname, as soon as she marries, that's basically the end of the research on that line. If you want to learn about deep maternal ancestry, then the mitochondrial DNA testing is the one you want to do, as that is passed from mother to child, making it perfect for tracing your mother's ancient lineage. Also, as a side note, the mitochondrial DNA is what they use in the military to help identify servicemen who cannot be identified any other way. If they have to use DNA, they usually use the mitochondrial DNA to match match the soldier to their maternal family. I was adopted, one from my birth family. Then the best test is the autosomal DNA. That's testing with multiple companies and uploading your raw data to GEDmatch. I've got my data uploaded to GEDmatch, and I keep forgetting to go back in to see what connections I have. But they can help maximize your matches. GEDmatch, word of caution here, with GEDmatch, you have the option to keep your DNA results private on their site, or check the box to say that you do not want law enforcement to have access to your DNA records. The GEDmatch is one that law enforcement can use to help solve cases and things, but they can't do it they've got a whole bunch of paperwork and legal stuff legal hoops they have to jump through. They can't just go in there and find it. And you have the right, because it's your DNA, to say, no, I do not want the police using my DNA, or any law enforcement agency using my DNA to help solve cases. So you do have the right to do that. So if you're going to put your raw DNA file up there on GEDmatch, just make sure that you read everything and check the boxes to say, yes, you want to be used in, it's okay to use them in law enforcement. No, it's not okay to use them in law enforcement. So for law enforcement solving cases and things. So make sure that you are aware of that and that you check those boxes accordingly. Segment 4, number 4, common misconceptions about DNA results. Number 1, DNA testing will give me a complete family tree. Nope. No way, no how, absolutely not. The DNA testing gives you genetic matches. You still have to do the genealogy research to build your tree. It will not help you complete your tree because different people take different DNA tests. Yes, most of them are on Ancestry, but you've also got some that are on MyHeritage, on 23andMe, on Family Tree DNA, and Living DNA. So depending which DNA testing they do depends on who you're going to find. So you're not going to be able to complete your family tree just based on DNA matching. You've got to do the genealogy research to build the tree. When you come to do that, like on Ancestry, when you make a DNA match, you actually have the option there to click a button, and it will automatically link that person into your tree. So you say, I want to link this person into my tree. It then comes up with a side panel, and there you put the name of the person, and it brings them up in your tree, and you go connect. Can you do that with the other tests? Yes, but you actually have to manually go to that person and say that you guys have a DNA matching. And then in the notes section, put DNA match made through 23andMe, DNA match made through Family Tree DNA, so that people know where that record came from if they can't find you. You know, if you've gone years later, somebody's taken care of your DNA results and everything else, and they go, well, hang on, they've got this person here, but they're not on Ancestry.com. If they look at the note, it says this person's was matched through 23andMe, this person was matched through Family DNA. So you've got where those records are. Ethnicity estimate, another misconception is ethnicity estimates are 100% accurate. These numbers are just estimates based on current data. Your percentages may change over time as more and more data becomes available. Technology improves and technology changes and everything else. There are going to be differences in those percentages. I have seen a lot since I got mine done in 2018. Did mine 2018? Yeah, 2018. There's been a lot of changes in those. Before it was just very basic. Now it's getting a little more detailed. And misconception number 3, DNA can tell me everything about my family's past. DNA is just a piece of the puzzle. It is one piece of the puzzle. It needs to be combined with historical records, traditional research to give you the full picture. So DNA is just part of the picture. Then you've got your historical records, which make up another part of the picture. In the historical records, we're talking about things like deeds, wills, immigration records, all those side ones. And then you've got to the traditional research, which is your birth, marriage, and death records, church, parish records, all of that sort of stuff. So with the historical records too, it's not just that information, it's also finding the stories behind the events that your ancestors were involved in as well. It's making the whole picture. So think about it. You've got DNA in there, you've got your vital records in there, which are your birth, deaths, and marriages. You've got other things in there like school records, electoral rolls, census reports, all these other records that are in there, and also 2 newspaper articles that can add in a historical context. You've got what was happening at that time and place. Were my ancestors involved with it? Finding the records to see whether they were or they weren't. So it gives you a more of a complete picture. And DNA is just one piece of that puzzle. So DNA testing is an exciting way to explore your family history. I tell you, I go in there, I have a blast trying to figure out how these people fit into my tree. And if they're enough, and I'm always sending messages out to people to say, hey, we've got this DNA match. Based on the information you have, I think this might be this might be our common grandparent. And it could be a great second, third, or fourth great grandparent. And then it's sort of like that tells you if it's maternal or paternal. I'm still not 100% sure that those are correct because I found errors on those. But anyway, you can turn around and say on the maternal side, I'm thinking it might be this person here. What information do you have about this? And just asking them questions and be gentle about it. Don't go in and say, hey, I had one person who contacted me and said, we're a DNA match. I'm like, okay, how? I don't know. We're just a DNA match. I'm like, okay. Who are you? Where are you from? Who are your parents? Who are your grandparents? Who are your great-grandparents? And I had to literally weed the information out of them. So DNA testing is an exciting way to explore your family history, but it's important to understand what it can and can't tell you. Whether you're looking for lost relatives, trying to confirm family stories, or just curious about your roots, there's a DNA test that's right for you. Let's see, I had one client whose father turned out not to be, her father turned out not to be the birth son of his grandfather, of his grandparents. I think it was that way. Hang on. Just trying to think. Yeah, after her father passed, they were doing, they had his DNA results and all that. And then they went back, but they were finding all these other cousins and everything else. And it turned out that their father's birth, the couple listed as their grandparents, the children's grandparents, were not the birth parents of their dad. And they found out this after he passed away. And he kind of hinted it, but he hadn't really come out and said it. So, be careful with things. You've got great books like this one. This is my favorite DNA book. It's in English. It's not all those medical terms. If it does have medical terms, it explains it in English, which is nice. But from pages 43, 43, 42, somewhere around there, hang on. Let's see what. Oh, so chapter 3 is ethics and genetic genealogy. So it's all about the ethics, the standards, and then on page 42, it actually starts with the genetic genealogy standards. So this is if you are somebody who is managing, ask somebody to do the DNA testing, and you're going to be managing their DNA results, you need to let them know that to expect surprises. There may be things that come up in the DNA testing that they're not ready for. Also, too, if you find when the tests come back, you find out that there's questions that should be asked to an older generation, you cannot ask them. The only person you can talk to about the DNA results is the person whose DNA results they are. You can't turn around and go, oh, their mother is not their mother? I got to go find out what the story is. Or the father is not the father. I got to go find out what the story is. And you go and talk to that parent? No, absolutely not. It is written in here. You can't talk to any other family member about those DNA results without the written permission from the person. And whether you're a professional genealogist or not, if you're just a hobbyist and you are bound by these standards as well. Anybody who is managing DNA testing or running the DNA tests, you are bound by these standards. And it can create havoc for you if you do not abide by them. Like if you suddenly go and talk to the parents of the person who you did the DNA testing for, because you found out that one of them was not their birth parent. Yeah, no. You have to find a way to very calmly and quietly tell the person whose results they are, and then leave it up to them to go and talk to their parents. But they may ask you to come along and talk with your parents about this. In that case, if they ask, get it in writing. Cover your butt. Cover your butt. So you got to test with consent, how you're going to be storing the data. Privacy is a huge thing when it comes to DNA. And then access by third parties, sharing the results, health information. Oh, DNA. Well, actually, on 23andMe, Ancestry is starting to get into this, but 23andMe is actually FDA approved. Is it FDA approved? I think it was FDA. One of those government organizations have actually approved, pretty sure it's FDA, 23andMe to be able to do health studies based on people's DNA. Are they prone to heart disease? Are they prone to Alzheimer's? Are they prone, and it will give you like the results saying, you have a 5% chance based on your DNA results. There is a 5% chance you might get Alzheimer's or you might get heart disease. These are not conclusive reports, and they even all over the site, it is these, we are not diagnosing you. Take these results to your doctor and discuss it with them, because there could be steps that you can take to prevent what you may be genetically wired to happen. So they can help you with preventative stuff as well. So take them to your doctor and say, hey, look, got my DNA results back and it says that I'm a 70% chance of a 70% risk of getting heart disease. And the doctor can then start working with you to how to better prevent that for you. Maybe not prevent it, but reduce the severity of it. So there's all sorts of things that's going on with the DNA. Traits are, Ancestry can now tell you traits that have been passed down through generations, as 23andMe have been doing for years. But 23andMe is the only one right now that is actually approved to be able to analyze DNA for health, for possible health issues. And on some of these reports, when you go to read some of your reports, there's actually a video you have to watch before 23andMe will allow you to see those results. And so like, come on, I just want to get to the results. And it's like, no, you have to watch this video. And they can tell whether or not you've watched it. And then you have to, there's a couple of hoops you have to jump through to get to those results. But it's making sure that you are informed that this is not a medical diagnosis, that it is a probability. If you have concerns, take it to your doctor and talk to them about it. And then they explain what the results are, and how you would interpret the results. And then after all of that's done, they let you go and see your results. So yeah, some of them even have a little quiz at the end just to make sure you were paying attention and not just fast forwarding through the little video they had you watch. But DNA is a lot of fun. You can find a lot of people. I'm finding people all the time. I have even found there's cousins that I have found who come from a very interesting background. That's all I'm going to say on that one. And I actually, what was funny is, well, not really funny, but my mum had actually sent me a newspaper article based on a relative, and goes, is this the same one that is blah, 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 blah. And she asked me if this is the same one and told me how this person could possibly be related. And so I went and did some research and went, yep, that is the same one that you were asking about. And then through DNA matching, I came up with, I think he was a cousin. Yeah, he was a cousin. They were cousins, but through the DNA matches, I actually found children of this person. And so we chatted backwards and forwards for a little bit, and I found out through the messaging and stuff and the way I phrased the questions that yes, it was her father that was involved with this. And so that we just let that rest. Yeah. And that one was not on Ancestry. That was one through Family Tree DNA. And let me tell you about Family Tree DNA. This is really cool. So part of your membership is that you get to join these different discussion forums. And one of them had, and I knew I have a very strong connection to Cornwall in England. And it actually comes up on my DNA results as being Cornish, because Cornish is different to England. Cornwall is different to England. And even DNA separates the two. So I had this strong connection to that. And then, so I go to join this group for Cornwall. I thought, cool, let me go join that because I can find more about some of my relatives that come from there. Because both my mother and my father's side, I have ancestors going back to Cornwall on both sides of my family. And so I answered all the questions exactly how they were the questions were worded. Like it was like, how far back do you go for your connection to thing? And so I'm like sitting there going, well, that's a 10th. Okay, I've got a 10th great grandfather, and this is who he was. And then he went and had these children and basically gave them the connections there. And the guy and the person who admined the thing came back and said, we actually wanted to know, they said they didn't word the question very well. We actually want to know who are the closest ancestors that you have that were from Cornwall. And I went, oh, well, that's a lot easier. And I went, and I think it was 6 of my great-grandparents out of 8. Hang on. Yeah, out of my great-grandparents, I had 6 out of 8 that came from Cornwall. And I said, and they all migrated to New Zealand. He goes, oh, you're from New Zealand? You're in. Apparently, if you have connections to Cornwall and they come to New Zealand, you are automatically into this club. Because most of people who came from that area came from Cornwall, or came from England, originally from Cornwall. So yeah, but it's been fun going into that. I go into that group every now and again. And what is interesting is that none of the surnames that I am researching that came from Cornwall are mentioned on any of the forums anywhere under the Cornwall thing. So when I go in there, they're all talking about these different relatives and things like that. And so I go, well, these are the names I am researching. Crickets. There is nothing. Like you can search the forums and everything for the names. So I typed in the names that I'm researching that came from Cornwall. Nothing. 0. Zip. And I'm like thinking back to census reports where I have waded through oodles of people with these names. Or when I'm doing online research on the parish records, there are oodles of people coming up with these names. And I'm sort of like, oh my gosh, it was almost as bad as Smith. Not quite. But, coming up with a lot of people that had these last names. And yet I'm in this group for Cornwall and not one other person is researching any of these names. And I thought, wow, that's wild. So there were a lot of people from down there. So it's very interesting. So if you have any questions regarding DNA, feel free to reach out. Also, go grab yourself a copy of this book. It is listed in the description down below. This will answer a lot of questions about DNA, and it puts it in a simple format that you can understand. I am not a scientific mind. My mind is all over the place. But I can read I understand what is written in this book. And for the very few bits that I didn't understand when I was doing the DNA course, where this was our textbook, I put the question into the discussions there, and somebody was able to answer it for me and answer it straight back with very simple explanation that I understood. Let's see. Oh, somebody put here, about 20 years ago, the DNA testing was only your straight maternal line via the mitochondrial or straight paternal line via the Y chromosome. Yeah. That's one of the things that you learn about in here when they talk about the history of DNA testing and everything else. That is a very good point to Endorana 323. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. That little bit, but yes, totally agree with you. And then Ancestry bought, and they've all bought out these ones where they can check your ethnicity and everything else. But it's a lot of fun. It's very interesting. There's actually a course coming up in, I think it's May. I want to say it's either April or May. No, might be March through May. I think it is. Yeah, it's like a 6 to 8 week course, and you meet once a week for almost an entire day. But luckily, with the time zones and everything else, for me, it would be the mornings and just a little bit into the afternoon. So I may have to go to my boss and say, hey, on this particular day each week, is it okay if I come in 30 minutes late? I think it's 30 minutes. I'm pretty sure it was 30 minutes that overlapped. Can I come in 30 minutes late on this particular day, on these particular days for the next 6 to 8 weeks? Yeah. So it's going to be, and I think because it ends before I move down to New Zealand, before I head off down to New Zealand. So that's a lot of fun. But anyway, I'm out of here. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. More than happy to answer the questions for you. And our question for you today was, have you ever taken a DNA test? If so, what was the most surprising thing that you discovered about your ancestry? And if not, what's one family mystery you'd like to solve with DNA? And with that, we are out of here. We'll be back tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Go out, have a super